Okay, Brad, I'll be the one to ask. You have extra incentive to beat Brooklyn the next 2 games because you're going to have their draft picks.
Doesn't factor into the coaches, players, teams focus. I mean, you just have to focus on who you're playing against and try to play well. Obviously, in the big picture, the grand scheme of things, I'm sure it's something that a lot of people are talking about, but I really haven't heard it come up within our staff or within players, at least in the discussions I've had.
Do you personally follow them, how they're doing?
I mean, I follow them from the standpoint of they're in our division. We play them 4 times, and I know that we've got to prepare to play them. And I know they came out of the gate slow, but the 4 games that I've watched, they played awfully well. And so it's early in the season for everybody. So time will tell how that all shakes itself out.
How would you assess where your team is now compared to when you took the job?
Just, I think structurally a lot better. We're probably younger, right, than 3 years ago, but it's a pretty connected group. We've talked about there's a lot of guys that on a given night can be very good on this team, and at the same time there's a lot of evenness across up and down the roster, and so I think they've handled that well. We've put a lot of emphasis on just trying to wait for your turn and make an impact when you get that turn, and trying to build the right way with how we're playing on both ends of the floor. It doesn't mean we're always going to play perfect. And we got 20 more shots in Dallas the other day. We just didn't hit enough to win, but we did a lot of good things. And so I see encouraging things in the losses, I see encouraging things in the wins, but we're all antsy to win.
Is there a next step you see for this group?
Yeah, I think just getting better as a team. I don't think it's necessarily like any particular one thing. I think we've got to get better in our execution. We've got to get better defensively in our execution. We've got to be more connected, more communicative. We're a November basketball team right now in a lot of ways.
Coach, you said at practice that this Nets team really plays with a sense of urgency. How does that affect you guys?
Well, if we don't, then they'll beat us. So, basketball is about how you play between those lines in that 48-minute game on that given night, and you have to play the right way all the time to have a chance to win. And I've been really impressed with how their group has played, specifically in the games that I've watched the last few games, and then also how the impact that their lineup, that first lineup, has had on games. I mean, it's been pretty impressive. No.
What are the challenges of playing at home back-to-back?
Just it's what's on the schedule, so you play them. I mean, I think all of us would prefer not to, but at the same time, it gives me, from a coaching standpoint, a chance to focus more on us than necessarily be prepared for the next opponent. But I think that, there will be adjustments made on Sunday both ways, and I guess that's a good thing to have to get used to.
Are you happy with the way Avery's playing?
Yeah, he's really playing great. I'm still in look and see and evaluate mode in a lot of things, but the one thing that's a given is that if we bring Isaiah or Avery off the bench, we've got a scoring spark. And so Avery just happens to be that, because when he came back, I wanted to be slow with him, and then he's exploded the last 3 games. So we'll see how that goes, and he's been great about it, and just like Isaiah was. And but I can see the spark that those guys give us is really, it helps us.
Prior to just Avery's injury and coming back here, was that bring him off the bench ever something you kind of considered before? Or was
You know what,
I
Against Brooklyn, Coach, is this a game where you got flexibility with the bigs to run him or make him work harder?
You mean?
against Brooke Lopez?
Well, I mean, hey, Brooke's really good. Brooke can score as well down on the block as anybody. He's a good shooter, but he's terrific in that kind of middle roll, what we call the short roll, when he catches it at the elbow. He's got all the flip shots. He's got the touch on all those shots, and he really creates a problem on that end. On the other end, we just, if you try to go through him, it's hard to go through him. So you got to do your best to move him, but it's easier said than done.
Thaddeus has been on a tear too, so I mean, what do you think of the tandem they've created in the front court there?
These guys are making a lot of money. They're good players. I mean, like, I don't think it's a surprise to any of us that Thaddeus Young and Brooke Lopez and Joe Johnson and those guys, they're good players. I mean, that's the thing that's why I said, like, I don't put too much stock in that first little part of the season, because in the last 4 games it's a totally different team, and those guys are playing great. And Joe's not only able to score the ball, but the more I watch him facilitate, the more impressed I am. He's made plays off pick and rolls for other people. He's demanded doubles and made passes. He's just done a really good job with the whole team, and I think it's lifted everybody else up.
You mentioned yesterday that some of the substitution patterns would be matchup based. You kind of talked a little bit about that tonight. How much is that something where you go in with a kind of an idea of, okay, this is going to be the matchup, or is that something that evolves based on what happens in the first half?
I'd prefer to be able to script it all out and go in with it, and I do go in with it, but it doesn't always stay on script. And I got to do the best I can at focusing on what I think gives us the best chance to win that game. Sometimes, you get to the point where, like things the other night where we just start off so slow in the third quarter that you make changes sooner than you want to. You hope to not have to do that, but that happens. And so it's a combination of gut and prep.